Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Today our group is going to present on the medical aromatherapy, and this discussion is based on one review article from the Rainer Schneider, Nick Singer and Tim Singer. So this is the review of the review article that we have discussed, and what we are going to discuss is that there is a few meta-analyses and there are systematic reviews that shows that aromatherapy is effective in treating patients with several medical conditions. However, most of this clinical study is low methodological quality, and there is some researcher that have conceptual ambiguity with regard to what actually aromatherapy is. And in this paper, we discuss the condition under which aromatherapy is most likely to be of medical value by outlining the workings of the olfactory system and the necessary requirement of odors to be therapeutic. And we also discuss on the aroma stick, which is commercially produced to treat or for clinical symptom relief across a variety of physiological target systems such as cardiovascular, endocrine, blood oxygenation, and pain, and this can be seen in both short-term and long-term. So first, we need to know what is actually aromatherapy is. So I'm gonna introduce what is the aromatherapy by outlining the advantage of having this. So every ancient culture, they start to use scents made of the plant materials for two purposes, which is mainly on the hygienic purpose and remedial purpose. And this can be seen throughout the history. For example, like this man, Hippocrates, he started to use scents to treat the hysteria, which is believed as the symptom produced by the movement of the worms, and for records shows that the therapeutic use of the distilled oil was already applied in the 10th century AD. About 350,000 plant species has been known in this world, and about 5% of it, approximately about 17,500, are aromatic plants, and about 400 of these plants is commercially processed for its aromatic raw material, which has been used in aromatherapy by certain physician or any practitioner. So, however, after the introduction of the clinical efficacy testing in 1950s and the rise of pharmacotherapy dominating Western medicine, aromatherapeutic approach were almost exclusively restricted to alternative medical approach. And until recently, conventional medicine assumed that aromatherapy as pseudoscientific. And what is that? It is because due to a lack of compelling empirical evidence that supports of how effective aromatherapy is. And in the last decade or so, this situation has changed, and there is growing medical interest in aromatherapy. And there are few clinical studies as well as meta-analysis show that some of the former reservation against the medical use of essential oils can no longer be upheld. And there is no doubt that essential oils have very specific pharmacologic property, which may be actively used to elicit specific physiological response. For example, certain odors, such as peppermint oil, they may alter the endogenous pathway of the brains, and therefore the patient might reduce the pain or anxiety. And this can be seen also in different odors, such as the eucalyptus and thyme. What's special about these two is that they have special characteristics, can be used by the patient as antibacterial function, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, immunomodulatory, and also antioxidant effects. And there is also few clinical studies on how to show that aromatherapy help to exert clinical symptom relief when compared with the placebo or standard treatment. For example, in meta-analysis examining different types of pain management, aromatherapy was superior to placebo in treating post-operative pain relief, obstetrical pain relief, and gynecological pain relief. And there is also systematic review that investigates how aromatherapy may help the patient with dysmenorrhea. And the patient claimed that they have elevating much more better effect using the aromatherapy rather than the placebo intervention. And there is also few meta-analysis of randomized control trial on how aromatherapy may help in the stress reduction. And they found that the aromatherapy have much more better effect rather than no treatment at all for those who's having stress. And there's also meta-analysis on how aromatherapy may improve sleep quality. And they found out that the inhalation of aromatherapy have much more better effect rather than massage therapy. However, in contrast with the patient with the depressive symptom, they found that the symptoms start to relieve when they use the inhalation in aromatherapy rather than massage therapy. And together, this finding demonstrate that therapeutic use of essential oil may exert clinical effects. In general, aromatherapy may be applied for a variety of medical conditions, but it appears to be most effective for medical conditions whose underlying mechanism involve emotional and attentional information processing, as well as the activity of the autonomous nervous system. And unfortunately, many of the clinical studies is low methodological quality. And for example, there is a systematic review of cancer patients found that some effect of aromatherapy massage for long-term pain, anxiety, and quality of life, but concluded that this did not translate into clinical benefit. And what is that? It is because of the low quality of studies. And in the above cited analysis, up to 50% has not enough quality. And this is due to the less evidence on the key outcomes, mode of administration of the aromatherapy, and the assessment protocol of the aromatherapy. And to add more, there is a reason that may either benefit or harm the evaluation of the aromatherapeutic intervention. And one critical factor pertains to the lack of accuracy of what aromatherapy constitutes. And most importantly, there is much confusion regarding the true or actual definition of what is aromatherapy is. And working with essential oils per se is not enough to make a clinical claim. In the medical context, applying them topically or even internally is actually phytotherapy. But in contrast with the aromatherapy means that they're working with the volatile compounds of essential oil by inhalation. And there is a mix-up and conceptual ambiguity even in high-rank research paper that exacerbate any objective assessment of the clinical use of essential oil. And there is many researchers seem at a loss or partially ignorant when testing the specific factors constituting an alleged aromatherapy. And unfortunately, this problem also pertains to study investigating cellular mechanism. And finally, there is also a systematic review and meta-analysis that explore the effect of aromatherapy on the treatment of psychological symptoms in postmenopausal women. And what they found is that after the treatment, the symptoms start to improve. But the author are confused and caught in the conceptual trap that has made aromatherapy a somewhat dubious intervention by confusing the very functional mechanism they wish to investigate. So when they want to conclude, they try to conclude that the aromatherapy massage improve psychological symptoms. But there is no differentiation is made whether the causative mechanism is the physical therapy itself, which is in this case is the massage therapy, or the aromatherapy, which is the inhalation. Thus, this condition add to the confusion whether aromatherapy has clinical benefits or not. And from this, it becomes clear that the current knowledge of the effectiveness of essential oil in the clinical context is not enough. And moreover, much of what passes today for aromatherapy is nothing else but setting and ambience, which at best may be regarded as unspecific factor. And before we elaborate on this, we will briefly outline the olfactory system to demonstrate how, why, and when aromatherapy is beneficial.
Okay, hi, I'm Adi. I'll be presenting on the physiology of the olfactory system. So, olfactory system is our sense of smell, and our ability to smell is known as olfaction. So, the definition of olfaction is the chemical sensation of gaseous odorants. Okay, so the olfactory nerve, the cranial nerve 1, will coordinate with other neuroanatomical structures in the nasal passage, such as neurotransmitters, the cerebral cortex, and these structures will help out for the intricate chemosensory process. In human, olfaction also closely coupled to other complex functions such as gustation, taste, and involuntary memory formation. So, for example, when people have cold, so usually you will lack your sense of taste. That is because our olfaction is very closely connected to the gustation. Apart from that, an intact sense of smell is critical for evaluating the safety of ingestible substances, assessing impending danger, and recognizing social relationships. So the ability to perceive and detect odors tend to decline with normal aging. In clinical setting, changes in olfaction may represent the initial presentation of the underlying pathology and warrant a thorough medical evaluation. Okay, so the function of our olfactory system. The olfactory system serves multiple functions in humans through direct connection with the limbic system and cerebral cortex. Smell intertwined with experiencing emotion and memories. Olfaction also serves a role in shaping behaviors and communication between animals. Odorant within the environment provide a fundamental information for survival. Several species rely on olfaction to identify nutritional resources, mates, toxins, predators, and impending danger. Now we're gonna look at the cellular part of the olfactory system. So the olfactory system is at the roof of the nasal cavity at the cribriform plate. So as you guys can see on the first picture, you guys can see the cribriform plate and also the olfactory nerve, olfactory bulb, the olfactory tract. Okay, so odorant molecules within the nasal passages first encounter receptors on the primary cilia of the olfactory sensory neurons. Each neuron expresses a single type of protein receptor on the dendritic extension. However, individual odorant can bind to many different receptor proteins. The dendritic end of this first order neuron are within a thin layer of mucus with adjacent supporting epithelium. The bombing glands secrete serous fluid rich in glycoprotein which form moistures and traps air, helping dissolve gases or odorant particles. The axonal component of individual olfactory sensory neurons then combine to form neurovascular bundle that project to the cribriform plate. So they will form the olfactory nerve. Okay, then what would happen is the axonal projection of the olfactory nerve synapse with the dendrites of mitral and tuft cells in glomeruli. And then these glomeruli that are found on the surface of the olfactory bulb. These glomeruli are critical structures for transducing olfaction. Each glomerulus receive converging axons from olfactory neurons that express the same specific protein receptors. So humans are estimated to have around 1,100 to 1,200 glomeruli within each olfactory bulb. Okay, so the second order mitral cells then project via olfactory tracts to specific areas within the brain that process olfactory information, including the piriform cortex, olfactory tubercle, amygdala, and the otorhinal cortex. Okay, now we're gonna look at the mechanism of the olfactory system. So the process of olfaction involves the conversion of a chemical stimulus, an odorant, into an electrical signal sent to the brain for interpretation. So this mechanism begins after olfactory sensory neuron depolarize in response to binding of an odorant molecule to G protein couple receptor. The dissociated G protein activate an intracellular cascade via adenylyl cyclase, producing a molecule of cyclic adenosine monophosphate that bind and open ion channels within the neuron's plasma membrane. Okay, subsequently, an influx of positive sodium and calcium ions and efflux of negative chloride ion occurs. So, when this occurs, the neuronal deposition continues until the threshold potential occurs, firing a resulting action potential. The action potential then travels down the olfactory nerve through the cribriform plate towards the glomeruli in the olfactory bulb. The glomeruli then project to the higher level processing in the brain. And then the interpretation will occur.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Nivian. I'll be presenting on the common misconceptions surrounding aromatherapy. So there are many common misconceptions regarding aromatherapy because the fact that aromatherapy, the term aromatherapy has been loosely used as a whole to describe the use of essential oils, regardless being it on the skin, used for massage, or just in the air. And even more, uh, a more vague definition, which includes the use of essential oil added into cosmetic care products. So if that is they added the essential oil into the cosmetic products, it is considered a way of aromatherapy. And in some areas, some other parts of the world, aromatherapy includes the intake of essential oil, such as they consume. So it makes the whole concept of aromatherapy a bit more confusing. So in the case of inhaled scents, which I mentioned just now briefly, so air saturation is a very important factor for eliciting the response. However, the relationship is not linear, which means that just because there is a maximum air saturation does not guarantee you maximum effect. Okay, and sustained exposure to a specific odor stimulus will inevitably result in the intensity of the stimulus being perceived as reduced. And I'm sure you all have experienced this before. Let's say you enter a room with a certain smell. Maybe you might not like the smell, but then once you sit in the room for some time, okay, you don't smell it anymore. So that is our brain perceiving that smell because you keep on a sustained exposure will consider the brain to perceive the smell as reduced. So as humans, we have um, a good ability to detect low levels of scent, but that does not contradict the fact that potential volatility of the scent is not important. And to ensure a full effect of the scent, so scents must be delivered directly and at maximum concentration to the nose. So based on what is mentioned here, okay, for effective aromatherapy, the fact that we get a scented candle and lighting up in the room just to give a generalized smell, okay, is not that effective. It's not effective at all. Okay, so and the effect of the odors in aromatherapy is usually tested in an environment which allows the results to be clinically realistic or natural environment. We want the results to be as natural and as realistic as possible. Okay, and also depending on the mode of application of certain scents, there may be very big differences, even if effective scents for that particular problem are administered. Okay, so for the next slide, we have the biochemical aspects that account for the effectiveness of aromatherapy. The first of which is a very important factor, which is the purity of the substance. This is because nowadays, many of the essential oils are diluted with cheap synthetic and semi-synthetic substances, which will effectively reduce the effectiveness of the essential oil. So the second factor will be the use of single note or complex blends. So the most of the odors that we are testing nowadays are of single note. However, it is a research that the therapeutic benefit may be enhanced by using complex scents. And as for the third point, the brain will actually differentiate between synthetic and natural scents. So there was a study done by some people in 2008 to measure the brain activity of women when they smell synthetic and natural scent. So they gathered some women and also their friends. So they gathered the body odor from their friends and also produced a synthetic replica of the um, body odor. So, and when they smell or when they did the study, they found out that the brain is processing them at different parts of the brain. Okay, and more importantly, which is proven from this research, that the natural scents are chemically more superior or more effective compared to the synthetic. Okay, and the fourth aspect is that natural plant derived raw materials are difficult to standardize because of difficult to control factors such as climate or chemotype variation. So biologically, natural plants will produce different levels of essential oil to protect themselves from different pathogens at different places. So the sources will always vary. So for the last slide, we have the basic preconditions for an effective aromatherapy. So you need 5 basic preconditions. So we have to make sure that you have to involve volatile compounds of essential oils if you are using inhalation. So the volatile compounds, they have to be able to be converted into gas easier. Secondly, we have to target the nose directly and specifically as what I mentioned just now. And also the molecule concentration must be high enough to be able to trigger physiological changes in the body. We also have to involve the use of natural essential oil compounds of high phytochemical quality, and the chemicals or the essential oils must be potent enough to strongly stimulate the olfactory system without causing habituation, which is the decreased response after multiple exposure. Okay, so that's all from my presentation. I hope that I have covered everything, and if there's any questions, you can ask me. Thank you very much.
Good morning, doctors and my fellow friends. My name is Liu Tan Chung Kai, fourth year medical student. I will continue the presentation and I will be discussing on the new developments in aromatherapy, which is the aromastic technology. Recently, a lipstick-sized nasal inhaler has been developed that delivers scents concentrated and unadulterated to the nose, forcing the person to sniff for information acquisition. So, as we know that aromatherapy, the main effect is going through the olfactory system. As we know from the physiology in a resting breathing, this is to a far lesser degree the case because only a fraction of inspired air encounters the olfactory epithelium. That is approximately 5 to 10% only. So if the aromatherapy can deliver through the lipstick-sized nasal inhaler, it will increase the efficiency and also increase the concentrated essential oil or the concentrated substance that can reach the olfactory system. Furthermore, the neurons in the nose are sensitive to air pressure, and this mechanosensitivity is thought to increase the sensitivity of the nose as well. Thus, the aromatic guarantees full absorption of the scent molecules when put close to one nostril, with the other one close with a finger during inhalation and then repeated with the other nostrils. So as the picture on the right side show the example of the aromastic which is produced by the company to increase the efficiency of the aromatherapy. Besides, the author of the review article also emphasized on one of the characteristics of the aromatic technology is that the inhaler consists of a wet filter held centrally, almost floating inside the tube. This allowed for the active ingredients to avoid contact with the container, which in turn guarantees a smooth flow of air around the filter. As I mentioned earlier, the nose is very mechanosensitive, which means that the airflow and the air pressure is important to increase the sensitivity of the nose. So this could help increase the efficiency of the aromatherapy as well. So besides, the centrally suspended filter has an additional benefit as it avoids direct contact with the polypropylene material of the primary container, thus minimizing the risk of a chemical reaction between the essential oil and material, which potentially could result in undesired vapors. So this also proves that the aromatic technology is user-friendly as well. So depending on the purpose of the inhaler, it contains different complex scent compositions of 100% natural essential oil ingredients. So the inhaler is designed and fabricated by Aromastic Incorporated, Sagan, Switzerland. So quality control is done by an independent laboratory. The essential oils inside the aromastic are purchased from reputable suppliers, complete with certificates of analysis. Freshness of the oils in the finished product is guaranteed by a foil-sealed container. So the odor has shown to maintain freshness for at least 24 months, according to several stability tests under GLP, good laboratory practice. Once opened, an aromastic lasts approximately 6 months. So the picture on the left side shows the aromastic and the aromastic sealed inside the package. So although not strictly invented for medical purposes, the inhalers have shown to produce large to very large effects across a variety of physiological and psychological target variables. Later on, my friends will be presenting some of the results of the studies done to provide some empirical evidence of the aromatic technology. As we know, null hypothesis significant testing is widely used in clinical testing. However, the studies done on testing the aromatic technology is solely based on the effect size and the confidence interval. So instead of the null hypothesis significant testing. So before we introduce the body of evidence for this new method of working with sense, we will address a fundamental issue affecting empirical science as a whole and the conclusions derived from clinical testing, in particular null hypothesis significant testing. So null hypothesis significant testing, (NHST) has become the standard for a broad range of clinical testing. However, for more than 70 years, methodologists have warned that the use of significant tests is in many cases not only statistically and logically wrong, but potentially detrimental to the advancement of knowledge. As we know, based on the null hypothesis significant testing, when the p-value is less than 0.05, it is considered significant, and the null hypothesis should be rejected while the alternative hypothesis should be accepted. However, the significant results do not tell anything about the relevance of the underlying effect. Also, they are not comparable across different studies. Many so-called highly significant results are only of small clinical importance when expressed in terms of the actual size of the effects. Any null hypothesis actually can easily be rejected with sufficiently large or homogeneous samples, and statistical tests can be arbitrarily be rendered significant regardless of the meaningfulness of the relationship investigated. So based on the opinion of the author, to circumvent these problems, methodologists advise to focus on effect sizes and confidence intervals because they are far more indicative of the importance of clinical results. Additionally, effect sizes are directly comparable because they are standardized. So in summary of my presentation, Aromastic technology is a lipstick-sized nasal inhaler invented to increase the concentrated substance to reach the olfactory system directly, in turn increase the efficiency of the aromatherapy. Besides, several studies done on testing the aromastic technology, the analysis is solely based on the effect sizes and confidence intervals, which is far more indicative of the importance of clinical results compared to non-hypothesis significant testing.
Assalamualaikum to Doctor and my fellow group members. Today I would like to explain about empirical evidence for the aromatic technology. So in this article mainly is about the aromatic technology where this technology is actually invented by some researchers overseas that invent this nasal inhaler that produce or deliver essential oils through various of sources to the patient's nose and eventually have some benefits to the patient. So these are the results of the the research that have been taken by some researcher overseas. In this article, there is 465 participants that are reported that testing the aromatic technology. So in this table, we can see this patient, the results significantly benefited the patient where there's a reduction of systolic and diastolic blood pressure, there's a reduction of heart rate, cortisol, pain duration, and also and pain intensity, and so on. So there are many in conclusion we can conclude that this aromatic technology has actually benefited participants that have been um, doing this research. This mode of aromatherapy produces changes that are far clinically meaningless. So as we can see, this have benefited the patients. So to put the observed effect in perspective, there are principles that I can conclude. That means if 100 people go through the aromatic treatment, 55.5 more people will have favorable outcome compared with receive the control treatment. And also if 100 people went through the inhaled treatment, 77.5 more people would have favorable outcome compared with the control treatment. So we can say that aromatic technology has been a huge impact to the patients, to the 465 participants. It benefited vast majority of its users. So these are some of the beneficial effects that we can conclude from the research. So in this article, they mention about only few inhalations needed to affect the target system. So in our body, there are many target systems that we can uh, give an example. For example, like um, pain, cognitive functions, about the metabolism, and so on. So only few inhalation that needed. Okay. Next is the reduction of systolic and diastolic blood pressure and heart rate, where it reduced the activity of sympathetic nervous system. All right, and the effect are same as the antihypertensive agents. This is concluded by the researchers lah in the article. All right, number three, there are direct supply. This direct supply of molecules to the nose not only increases the oxygenation but also keeps the oils, keeps the sense, or keeps the the air from the inhaler 3 times longer in our body. All right, and also these participants have been reported to have improvement in mood and also well-being. And also these other molecules decreases pain intensity perception and also pain evoked brain activity. um, Besides this aromatic technology that have been developed also improve system burden, which means some patient with some medical background or medical history. For example, they have chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, asthma, chronic bronchitis. This patient would have symptoms improvement where they took aromatic technology. All right, and yeah, this finding also support that this aromatic technology has huge impact to the patient's health. Right? These are some important inferences that I can conclude. Um, Number one is the effect of inhalers are specific and not due to unspecific factors like pleasantness of the odors, and its effect actually direct certain targets of the body. Number two, they target different physiological system, whereby, as we mentioned before, about the blood oxygenation, about respiration, about the cognitive functions, pain, and all that. So these effects are not only produced when directly to the nose. I mean, it's not only produced, it's only produced when delivered directly to the nose. That's why in previous my batch have been previous member that have been explained about the physiology of olfactory system, whereby we need to directly um, the odor must be directly to the nose, eventually to the olfaction system, so that all the benefits from the essential oils from the nasal inhaler could be benefited the patient. They are fast acting and also observable only a few inhalations, as we mentioned before. Number four is the inhalers outperform other intervention. For example, resting, progressive muscle relaxation for anxiety patients, enhance bodily and cognitive function. So these other intervention actually has been outperformed by aromatherapy, this aromatic technology. Lastly, that I can conclude is the conclusion is aromatic is suitable for self-treatment, portable, and therefore can be used anywhere and anytime. So in my conclusion, I would like to explain, in my opinion, this aromatic technology, which is also a mode of aromatherapy, has been a huge impact to the patients, and also it has benefited patient's health. It not only improve, it not only improve normal person's physiological system, but however it also improve a real patient's health. As we have mentioned before, they target the different physiological system. They have some research. There's evidence that have improved pain, have improved mood, have improved cognitive functions. So nevertheless, this mode of aromatherapy is very needed in this era of modern medicine. All right, so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
So now we move on to limitation and summary. So just now we already discussed on the effect of inhalers and we have seen the result, and the result is quite promising. However, before we can say that this is a foolproof adjunct treatment, there's some limitation that we need to address, and I'll summarize the whole study in a while. So the first limitation that we see is we do not know the exact dose of the inhaled air because it is not standardized. So even though we can fix the amount and the concentration of the extract in one capsule or in one aroma stick, we do not know what is the exact amount of air or the active substance that's being sucked into the nostril of the individuals, because there's a lot of factors that affecting it. For example, maybe some patients have nose pathology, have polyp, have deviated septal deviation. Maybe the individuals have lung capacity, because some individuals have bigger lung and larger capacity, and when they inhale, they'll create more negative pressure and suck in more air, and thus subsequently more active substance is going to go in. So all these factors will affect the effectiveness of aromatherapy. Having one puff comparing to the other patient might not have the similar result. So we do not know, we cannot standardize what is the dose of air because it depends individually. That's one of the limitation. Secondly, it's the subjectivity of the result. So if you see the result of Schneider studies, most of them are subjective in nature. For example, there's reduced pain duration, reduced pain intensity, patient feel sudden relief, patient feel they're able to concentrate. but these are subjective in nature and differ from individuals to individuals. And even if you argue that there's some objective results, such as there's lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, cortisol, we do not know what's the mechanism. We don't know, is it neurobiologically or is it biochemically. Okay, so for this is a limitation, because when we say that a drug works, we need to know what is the pharmacodynamics, what is the pharmaco. And for example, we know that the calcium channel blockers helps lower blood pressure by blocking the calcium channel, reduce cardiac contraction and reduce cardiac output. These are the mechanism we know, but in this case of aromatherapy, which pathway? Is it the gate theory of pain? Is it some neuron, some neurochemical release? So we do not know what's the mechanism, and this poses as a limitation to aromatherapy. And the third and fourth is the unstandardized duration and also the frequency of inhaler use. So duration wise, some patients are using it acutely or periodically, for example in menstrual pain, but other study participants use chronically, as we see in the chronic back pain patient. So the duration of the study is different. So, and this is a limitation, because if some patients need to use prolonged time to have this effect, but some if the let's say if it's acute pain, then this aromatherapy will not be effective if it takes time to work. And because the study does not provide standardized duration of study, that poses as a limitation, where we can conclude that whenever there's pain we can use aromatherapy, because each duration contribute different effectiveness. So this is one topic that we have to assess. And the second one is the frequency, because in the study in their study participants, most of them use more than what the study protocol insisted. So let's say we wanted them to use 3 puffs a day, but they'll use 5 to 6 puffs. So and different individuals use different puffs. So because of the unstandardized frequency of inhaler, it might causes some deviation of the effectiveness. So this is one limitation that we also have to assess. However, we can see that whether does this effect whether does the aromatherapy works is because individually they will feel that whether they want to add in more or less. So this is a factor that is very difficult to control. And the fourth and the final two is chronicity of illness concurrent with active treatment, and also possibility of biased result. So why this is a limitation? Why biased result? This is because most of the study participants are healthy individuals or highly stressed individuals. So they don't have underlying hypertension, they don't have maybe some borderline hypertension, maybe some, but most of them are healthy individuals. So this is not done, these results are not taken in medical or clinical settings to say that aromatherapy can successfully lower lower the blood pressure, but we do it in healthy individuals doesn't mean that it might work in hypertensive individuals. So this is a limitation, because even though the result is promising, we need to have more reliable clinical results so that we can determine that aromatherapy really works. And also the chronicity of the illness. If when we say that we want clinical results from clinical setting, that poses a problem, because patients have to use both aromatherapy and the underlying and the active treatment. So we don't know whether when there's effect, whether is it come from aromatherapy or is it the active treatment, the ongoing medication that's helping it. So these are the limitations that we have to see. So all in all, in summary of this study done by Schneider et al. On the basic mechanism, critique, and also newly development of aromatherapy. Just now we have already touched on the definition of aromatherapy, which is quite vague outside, but in this study it is defined as the use of scent to produce physiological effect. And because it uses scent and involves the olfactory system, some other factors that already mentioned just now will affect it, such as the purity of the substance, concentration of the substance, whether is it natural or is it synthetic, and whether is it single extract or a complex blends. So in order to prove the effectiveness of aromatherapy, Schneider et al. Had done and also gathered some studies done before by using this newly developed aromastic technology. This aromastic is a device that can deliver highly concentrated dose of this extract or active substance into the patient's nose. So their finding shows that it's quite good. It shows there's immediate and relevant clinical effect of aromatherapy. It is non-invasive and is less likely to be corrupted by sensory habituation. So as mentioned or explained just now, sensory habituation is when there's a lot of stimulus and there's a lot of response. Your brain try to cut down. When there's too much stimulus, your brain will try to cut down so that to reduce the response. And this is very prominent in the olfactory system. For example, when we walk into a very smelly room, okay, at first it will be very smelly, but after 1-2 minutes the smell will gone and we already sensory habitualized to the bad smell. So this is a bad factor for aromatherapy, because if the patient sensory habitualized to the active substance, then the effectiveness will wear off. But however, in this case, the aromatic is not corrupted by sensory habituation, because comparing to the whole room aromatherapy where they just fill the room with aroma, this device can deliver a highly concentrated dose and whenever patient needed. So there will be a period of rest in between, and the sensory habituation, there will be a period of rest in between the use, so that the sensory habituation won't reduce the effectiveness of aromatherapy. And finally is the side effect of this aromatic is side effect free, and they have monitored sustained therapeutic effects if repeated use. So as the study recommends, even though the aromatic can be potentially used as a standalone measure to as an adjunct to medical treatments, there are still some limitations that have to face concurrently with active treatment to see the effectiveness of this aromatherapy. Thank you.